Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tell Me More with me, Tony Moore. I hope you guys are still doing great. We are in week 3 of quarantine. I don't know about y'all, but I'm still doing great, and I hope you are too. If you haven't already tuned into my many episodes, I've had a chance to talk with so many people during this. You can now check it out on YouTube. So go to my YouTube channel, Lounging with Tony, to check out all of my interviews with people like Latrice Royale, Christina Pasty Grady, Laganja Estranja, all types of people. So go check it out, Lounging with Tony on YouTube. Now, today, I am very excited to talk to another content creator, producer, actor, Dorell Anthony, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting during Pride last year. We also have a mutual friend, and I just want to have a kiki and talk to him about all of the things that he has done and has been doing. So let's get him on in here. Let me find him on here so that we can chit chat. We have resorted to hats now, y'all, because this is quarantine life.
Hi.
Hey,
Hey.
how you doing?
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. How's everything going? How are you doing with this quarantine?
Listen, I'm doing great. It's still like a staycation to me. I am just living my life and talking.
I don't know, I'm having mixed feelings about it because I think I'm in that place because New York has been under for a long time at this point. And I think that I'm at the point I'm like, I need to go out. I need to see people. You know, I'm a people person. When we met, like that's what I'm trying to do. So I want to do that more.
Oh, well, are you attending a lot of Zoom meetings and happy hours?
I just started doing Zoom like 2 weeks ago, and it felt like I was at the club. I was with my friends. We were drinking and listening to music, and then we were playing like different games. Like we did Pictionary. And it's interesting. I think that what this has done is taught us different ways how to communicate with people.
Yes, and how to reconnect with people, because I feel like we spend so much time just being busy that we don't take the time to really connect with people. So I think now it's allowed us a time to not only recharge ourselves because, we're always hustling and doing this, that, and the other, but also just taking the time just to like reach out to people that we haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and connect with. So
absolutely. I mean, I'm always the person, interesting enough, I don't like being on the phone. Like I hate calling people. And now I look forward, I'm like, I'm gonna have a phone conversation with somebody. I'm gonna get on. I think it's gonna be great for some people, and I think communication is actually going to get better from this.
Yeah, I agree. Although I say, and every time I talk to someone about this, relationships and friendships are going to be real different.
They're going to be real different. I believe that. I mean, I think a lot of people, it just started like snowing in New York. What?
Y'all, okay, Mother Nature is really getting y'all. It's raining here.
Yo, it's like hell coming down.
Well, listen, it's better to be inside than outside.
It is, in this case, 100%.
Yes. Oh, hi, Akeem. He said, I have found that I'm getting all of my work done in the same amount of time that it used to take me to get work done. I'm going to need you to go a little faster.
Yes. I mean, that literally is, so I work from home as well, like to speak to that. And I find that I'm having to work twice as hard. I'm just like, what is going? Like every 5 minutes, they're like meeting. Here's a call. Train this person. Do all that. So it's a lot. And I'm like, man, I'm ready to go back to the office where I can take a break.
Well, you can be like, I'll be right back. I gotta step out. I'm gonna go outside for a second.
It's so true. I was like, I just need to go for a walk around the block. I can't handle it.
So I watched Pride the series, and I also tuned into the podcast, and we're gonna talk about all of that.
Yes.
But let's start at the beginning. Growing up, what did you aspire to be like? What did you see Dorell Anthony doing in life?
Wow, I knew I wanted to do TV. I knew I grew up wanting to do television. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to reach that goal. Like most people, I started off by watching soaps because I had my grandmother, my mom, my great aunt, everybody watched soaps. So I was like, I want to be on one of those. Those seem like a possibility. And where I
Yeah.
come from, a small town in East Texas, I was always told like, oh, that's impossible. You'd have to be in New York or Hollywood to do that. And, you know,
Yeah.
once you're here, you're going to, you know, your role is probably going to be doing like community theater or something like that. But shout out to those people, by the way, because I love community theater. I love
Oh,
theater
me
in
too.
general. Love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started writing. As an
Mhm.
escape, I would see certain storylines on soaps. Like I remember the soap opera called Sunset Beach back in the
Yes.
day, and they had like a tsunami and an earthquake thing. So I
Yes.
literally wrote this like short thing like for my school called like Shockwave or something. Or I don't know. And it was a little ridiculous, but I realized that those are the things I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to tell stories. I wanted to be able to be a part of those stories I was telling. And I've always had a big like love of horror films.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sunset Beach, I don't know if you remember, they did a Terror Island storyline where they had like a serial killer, like it was like a spinoff of like Scream or something. They did something ridiculous, but I started writing horror. Like I wrote one horror film in college, and then I wrote the sequel to it. And so it was just like I always knew I wanted to do that.
Yeah. So then, getting out of that small town and like, you know, heading to New York. Did you move from New York then? And you started working like, you know, as an actor and things like that. What do you consider your big break in the acting world thus far?
I mean,
Like,
it would have to almost be the All My Children reboot.
mhm.
So I was actually doing like featured like background at that time, but
Yeah.
I learned how strong and fierce soap fans were, and I should know because
Oh
I've
yeah.
been one all of my life.
Yeah.
But I remember someone seeing me and saying, "Oh, hey, were you part of the students on All My Children?" Like and like that to me stuck out because when you watch shows, you never really look for the people in the background, whether they're featured or not.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this might work. So I started getting people interested to speak to me and talk to me about more importantly, because it was the All My Children reboot and it was
Yeah.
being done specifically online, and people were like, we want to know your experience about this. We feel like you can talk about it. And so I did. And I mean, I didn't have much to say besides of how it was a really interesting experience. First of all, I want to say that, but I think that most importantly, I was able to finally see how hard soap opera actors work, because I think a lot of times people say like, oh, they're awful actors or they're not good, and they are the hardest working actors in the industry.
They really are. And I mean, my mom was an ABC soap mom, and my godmother literally watched all of them. I sat in her room one day and she flipped the channel between all of them. I couldn't keep up. But my favorite soap is Days of Our Lives. It's always been since I was 14. And I always say that soap actors don't get the credit that they deserve because they have to emote so much feeling and storyline and dialogue in such a short amount of time. And they get like a rehearsal and a take, maybe two if needed, and then they got to move on because there's episodes 5 days a week. There's a storyline 5 days a week. And if you're an audience member that just tuned in, you know, you kind of have to be up to speed with like the storyline, the stuff that happened previously, plus what's happening now. So soap actors don't get the justice that they deserve. Was All My Children one of the ones that you watched with your family?
Yes. Well, okay. So my first soap was Days of Our Lives. So I was a strictly NBC person. Days of Our Lives, watching back when Marlena got possessed, I was possessed. Like
I hate that I missed that. I wanted to see that.
Oh, I didn't miss. It's so interesting because those episodes I think were 95, something like that. Like I still remember it like it was yesterday. I can tell you the entire storyline. So for me, I started with NBC. My family actually watched Another World as well. So I was watching a lot of NBC soaps, and then I only watched ABC soaps, unfortunately, I guess fortunately, when they had like big like drama going on. Like I watched like the Babe Switch storyline, like the Baby Switch when they did all 3 shows, or they would have a character like I think it was Ray Cummings, like Linda Dano went to each show. So I watched it when those happened. But it's interesting that that ABCs are the soaps I've been working with and working on. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know how that ended up happening, but it did, and I think blessings come. I mean, I've done some things over I actually did a directing internship thing at Days of Our Lives, so I got to do
Oh,
that.
did you?
Yeah, it was really, Days of Our Lives tapes fast, but they are the nicest people. The
Yes.
nicest people I have
Agreed.
ever met in my entire life. Like, everyone is just they're so happy because Days of Our Lives, every year they go through the will they or won't they be renewed kind of thing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that's made them more fortunate and more humble to be in the building.
Yeah.
And again, like, GH is great. I have a family over there. They're all wonderful. The other soaps are great, but Days particularly are just like, hey, we're just happy to be here and we're happy to work.
Yeah.
So I think that it's such a blessing to see that and see the difference between the GH set and the Days set and how they react.
Yeah. Being a fan of Days and having that internship with them, what was it like for you going to the set like the first time and being like, I'm here in Salem? Because I can share my experience.
I want to hear yours. I was the first place I went, which might be similar to your. I literally went and sat in the Demira house. I went and sat on the couch in the Demira house, looked at that portrait of Stefano, and I was like, I'm here. That was my first. I actually was there, Brandon Barash's first day as Stefan.
Okay.
That's when I started doing it. I was there his first day, and I saw him and Camilla's interaction right then, and I was like, "Oh,
amazing!
This is gonna be fire!" And I remember that moment. I mean, in Days, it's so interesting because while I was doing the internship stuff, I remember them being like, "Hey, it's important that you keep these storylines shut because we filmed so far in advance." So I was there when they started doing the time jump, and I was for months, I couldn't say anything, and people kept being like, "What's coming on Days?" And I was like, "Yo, it's crazy."
Yes, I tell people all the time that if you need to catch up on Days, just start at the time jump because it became a completely different show.
It did.
After that. For the better. I used to do background work on Days, and which it's weird because my journey with soaps and Days has been interesting. Like, I started watching the show, then I started attending soap events, then I started hosting soap events, and then when I moved to LA, I did background work on the show.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll never forget this. I was standing in front of the Brady Pub, and Rachel Melvin, who played Chelsea at the time, she was standing there, and we had met each other before, through the soap events and stuff.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Tony, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm working."
That's so amazing. And I think Days of Our Lives is so iconic, Tony, in that regard because, like you just said, you were at the Brady Pub. That's the place that has not changed. Ever. Demira mentioned never, so being a part of those moments feel like you're literally cemented in history.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always enjoyed going to that set just because everyone was so nice. I knew everyone. It was quick. It was literally maybe a 4-hour day, and I was done. And I tried not to pay attention to the storylines because as a fan, I still wanted to be surprised. But it was always a good experience. I still hope to one day have a speaking role on the show.
You will manifest it. You will. You will be Max. Listen, I wish that they would. So I think that soaps, and this is something slightly different. I think that soaps are still struggling to find that line for African American portrayers, and really having those characters in the forefront. I think what Christoph St. John and Victoria Rowell did back in the day at Young and the Restless really was a jumping off point. And obviously we don't want to forget Debbie Morgan and Darnell from All My Children, because I think that they also had a place, but now it feels like, I feel like right now, to be honest, and this isn't even me being biased, General Hospital is doing it the best. They have, there was a scene the other day on the show, and it was maybe 7 people of color in one scene in one room. And I was like, wow. This is how you do it. And they were not there to serve anyone else's storyline but their own. And I think so many times people of color, whether it's Black, Hispanic, Asian, they're always there to serve someone else's story rather than be front runners and front running storylines. So I'm happy to see that some soaps are starting to take that. You know, years ago, Bold and Beautiful was doing well with it, and it stopped, you know, with the transgender storyline. So I really do hope that, and I think if you manifest it, you absolutely can be on Days of Our Lives. You absolutely can.
Listen, I have been manifesting it. I've been praying about it. I had a dream about it.
It is time.
At some point, it needs to happen.
I'm putting it out there. Ron Carlivati, here's your man. Write him into the show. He should be on the show. He should be a part of it. I mean, when you get that moment, and you've already talked about kind of having it like with background, but when you get that moment to be a part of something that you grew up watching, that you grew up loving, it's just like, wow, it's just a good moment, especially for us.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going into the LGBTQIA venture, what were some of your like film, TV shows, actors that you like looked up to or gravitated towards?
Well, in terms of, I mean, the first experience that I had with any LGBT type show was Queer as Folk. For me, however, I didn't really connect. I mean, there were like a few characters, like mannerism wise, like Emmett, those type of characters. I was like, okay, you know, I feel like I'm that, I guess, type of gay, if you want to say it. But I definitely fully connected with Noah's Ark.
Me too.
I think Patrick Ian Polk is an amazing writer. I think that what he did with Noah's Ark by having all of those stereotypical, not just stereotypical characters, because each character served their purpose, but characters that you really could identify with, not just by mannerisms, but also by the color of their skin. So that was my first chance of watching something where I was just like, and even that show didn't get their due justice. I don't believe it didn't. But I saw no reason why that show couldn't have been paired with Queer as Folk on Showtime, and we see them back to back. Instead, that show had to be on Logo, which, you know, Logo was great back in the day, but we saw the moment Logo started kind of dying. We saw that. So, those were my first moments into it, because, you know, we didn't see it on soaps, really. I knew soap actors who were openly gay and playing straight roles, but I never knew, you know, that it could be a complete TV show that was LGBTQ, besides, you know, Will and Grace, of course.
Yeah, mine, I remember the first gay film that I ever watched was Billy's Hollywood Screen Kids.
Oh my God, yes, I've seen that.
That one, and I totally thought, like, I was living the fantasy. I was like, you know, this is how love is going to be, this, you know, and that became my imagery. And then also Latter-day Saints was another one. Like every now and then I would pick up on the like back in the day when you had to go to Blockbuster or, you know,
5 movies for 5 days for $5.
Boom. And then I remember Queer as Folk, and I always appreciated the fact that we were getting these stories. But like you, I didn't feel connected until I started watching Noah's Ark, and I felt like I get this show, I understand this show. Like I felt like I was Alex, like with his mannerisms and stuff like Alex/Noah is how I felt.
I can see you as a Noah type character as well as Alex, because he was just all like, this is how it's gonna be. I mean, I think that again, that show just didn't. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think it left on a cliffhanger, and then they made a movie like 3 years later. Yes.
They Wade got into that car accident with his boyfriend after getting caught cheating with Noah. And then we saw Wade, and then that was the end, and we were like, this can't be it. And then years later, they did the movie, which I remember when they premiered the movie here, I was the first one to the Sunset movie theater. So I guess what happened. Because I needed to know what happened. But it was just, you know, even at a young age and like coming up and things like that, it was nice to have that imagery of the gay lifestyle.
Absolutely.
With you then you created Pride the series, which is, I mean, everything that you love about TV is in this series. The love of soaps, the love of LGBTQIA characters, horror, like everything is in this. What made you decide to create this show?
Well, a few things. So, as an actor, as a performer, sometimes you get tired of waiting. You get tired of waiting and doing the auditions and, pounding the pavement, as they say. So, I
Yeah.
wanted to create something where while I'm auditioning and while I'm doing other projects, I could have total control over and I could, like, really tell stories that I didn't see was out there anymore. There was a point in time after Queer as Folk went off and after Noah's Ark went off and after Will and Grace went off that there was no LGBT stories out there at all. Like,
Yeah.
I believe it was like 2013 and there was nothing. And I was just like, what happened? The L word's gone. Everything is gone. It's almost like someone came in with like a vacuum cleaner, sucked all the LGBT shows out and said bye. So for me, I was like, this is my opportunity to create something. I never intended for Pride to grow the way it did. Pride was always supposed to be like, I'm going to film something cute with my friends and we're going to post it on YouTube. And that's not what happened. I mean, it became a SAG project. It then started getting special guest stars like Eileen Kristen and Lauren B. Martin, and then, bringing all these people in, and it turned into something that I am so proud to say is still going. And now it's spinning off into all of these different subcategories with the podcast and finding different ways to give back to the LGBTQIA community. That's something that has been the most important for me, is being able to take this show, show it to people who are younger, who don't know what it means. Obviously, we're not trying to promote partying lifestyle, but we are trying to have people understand that there are people out there like you. And, you don't have to be, our show is mixed with gay and straight characters. I got really tired, I want to say this, of seeing shows where they were just either all gay and the one straight person in the show like hated all the gays, or it was all straight people and then they had one stereotypical gay in the show that got on everyone's nerves and was just there for the comedic jokes. So I created a world with Pride where we all coexist, because that's the world I live in. That's the world you live in. That's how the world is. So I mean, I think that that's where it is with Pride, and it's been a blessing. And listen, I've had my hardships with it. Any digital series, when you're producing it yourself and getting money for it, I've had my hardships, but I wouldn't take any of those for granted at all.
Yeah. Speaking of those hardships, because it is tough to like create your own, write your own, produce your own, fund your own. Like what did you learn through that process? Just about like the business end of it, the creating of it, the producing of it. Like what was your takeaway after that first season?
Take my time. Take my time, because I am on no one's time but my own. And what I think I was doing in the beginning was rushing to put out a project and a product so people could say, oh, I did something. And so I could get this notoriety I felt I was maybe looking for that I didn't feel like I had gotten previously, which is the wrong way to go. And that's why it took so long for season 2. And that's why it's even taking even longer for season 3, is because we, every season gets better and better. And I realized things that I want to do differently. We've hired Scott Sickles, who is the writer at General Hospital. He's writing Pride now.
Wow.
And I can already see through the writing, oh, this is a different show. Our characters have finally grown up. I felt like the way that me and my team were previously writing the show, we were trying to grow up as well. If that makes any sense, we were trying to grow as we were writing. And Scott, being an older gentleman already, he's aged these characters to a point where it's like, oh, he's actually writing Kai, my character, as a 31, almost 32-year-old male. And he's not writing him as a 26-year-old lovelorn little boy who can't handle the fact that his man may not want him. So I think that that's what I learned most, is just wait, and everything happens when it needs to happen and when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. How, because they always say life imitates art. Like, how closely related are these characters to the people that you know?
Oh,
and did you base
copyright infringement. I took all of their lives and I put it in the show. No, I mean, you know what it does? I think what I did was that there are aspects of our real lives within our characters, but what I like most is like, what would Kai do that Dorell didn't do when he was in that situation? Like, now it's fun to kind of take those moments and play with them. Like, what would Travis do that Braden maybe would have done in that situation, and so forth with all the characters. So I think that that's my favorite part about it. I mean, what happened in Dorell's life that is similar to Kai's, being in love with a man who was bisexual or just figuring themselves out, that was so long ago in my life that
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could connect to that. But as an actor, I'm able to find those moments and say, okay, I got this. This is how Kai reacts. And there are some times where something will happen with Kai where I'm like, I don't know if Dorell would do that, but that's what we learn as actors, like, going through it.
Is there anyone that you would love to have a part of the show?
Oh my God, yes. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say that my friend Ashley, who's in the show, really wants Michael B. Jordan to be a part of the show for something. I don't know. She just like, can we get Michael B. Jordan? Like, and that's why I like to surround myself with people like Ashley and all of my producing team, because the sky's the limit. And instead of being someone who, if they say we want Michael B. Jordan, I don't say, girl, it's never gonna happen. I say, all right, let's see what happens. You just don't know. Like, I didn't realize that I would have Eileen Kristen, who I have loved since I saw her as Delia back in the day. Like, now we're very close friends and we work together. She's my colleague. So never say never in those situations. So yeah, I would love that. I would love some of the people from Pose to come play.
Oh, yes.
I would love some of that. Geez, is there anyone? You know what? I would love for Eileen Davidson to come play. I love Eileen Davidson because I just feel that she could give something to the show because she has such a large range, and the characters that she has played, the 17 characters on Days of Our Lives, plus, Ashley Abbott, I feel like they're always confined within a certain role, certain world. And I have talked to a lot of soap actors about coming to play, and they have said, we like digital series like The Bay. When they have all these characters, they say, we like digital series because we can actually come and just have fun. Like, there's no world we have to live within, like, except for, the show's world. But it's like, we can kind of like shake it up a little bit. We're not confined to daytime television.
Exactly. If you could, because I know we started talking about the series, and I don't know if anyone actually knows like what the series is. If you could describe what this series is, which you can find on Amazon Prime. Thanks for you. We in quarantine, so go check it out.
We got plenty of time. Y'all better get on Amazon Prime or Tubi TV if you want to watch it for free.
Yes. How would you describe Pride the series to those who haven't ventured into that world yet?
Yeah. So Pride is a coming of age story between a group of friends who learn pretty much the hard way how life can be. I think that most importantly, you had a bunch of kids who came and they were dropped into New York and thought they had a handle on life, and then life started kicking them in the ass really quickly, like it does most of us, like it's doing right now. So Pride really showcases that, and you see how relationships change, which is one of the most beautiful things about Pride in that aspect. There are siblings, Kai and Trina. There are friends who grew up together, Travis and Kai, and you start to see I think when we're growing up, we're like, we're going to be friends forever, or we're going to be, this is our relationship, and this is how our relationship is going to be forever. And in the course of the show of Pride, you see how the relationships start to change by the way that people start to grow up and by the way that they start to behave. So I think that is the groundstone for Pride.
Yeah. And then I know that you're giving yourself time, but will we hopefully see, when would you like to see season 3 happen?
Well, I would really like for this quarantine to be over so people can go back to work. Number one. And it ain't. So, I mean, with things now, because I don't know what's going to happen with, we've been talking to investors and all those conversations, as you know, are paused. It's a wrap. So we honestly need to see how the economy and everything's going to shake out after this. I mean, I would be silly to go and place we need people to donate to Indiegogo or Kickstarter because people are struggling with most of America is on unemployment right now. So, hopefully in 2021, I would really like to see the summer, because I've been wanting Pride to come out during Pride Month. Yeah. That's my goal. So because Pride is probably canceled all this year, next year, I would really like for it to come out around June. Like, I would love to have a few episodes in the vault because we already have them written. You know, it's mostly just kind of getting everything together. We are in pre-development, and I'm excited about, not excited about what's going on in the world, but I will say what's happening in the world today is definitely going to influence the show moving forward. There's a lot of shows, Tony, that are now looking at doing virtual shows.
Right.
Saturday Night Live is coming back this weekend as a Zoom show. You know?
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know how.
I'm gonna need everybody to have good Wi-Fi though. Like, if you're gonna do a Zoom show, make sure you have the high-speed Wi-Fi.
Well, right. Well, I do know that networks are now. So The View started doing it first. We had to give them credit. They started doing Zoom episodes. But what ended up happening is their Wi-Fi was so bad in some people's homes. I'm looking at you, Joy. That ABC now said, hey, we're going to show up with these Wi-Fi danglers, and that way we can make everyone's Wi-Fi high speed and the same. So networks are now getting involved so they can have high quality. But I don't know what that means for the face of television. I'm wondering how many shows. There's a show called All Rise that's coming back this week.
Yes, and they're doing COVID, like, Zoom, film it in your house type of an episode. I wonder if, because the rise of reality TV happened with OJ and like the court case and things like that, and that spun out reality TV. I'm wondering if this will then, you know, present like another way to do shows, film shows, and things like that in more of a virtual world, because everyone, but I'm not sure if it's as good though, because a lot of people are now doing their shows from home. Yeah. And I'm still kind of looking at it like, I don't know about this. I don't know if the look and feel of it is translating and still the same. You know what I mean?
I think it's going to work for talk shows. I think it's going to work for not necessarily reality shows, and not necessarily, especially not soap operas. I mean, that it can't work for those type of genres because, like, they're gonna do the Housewives of Atlanta reunion virtual now, and I don't know how that's gonna work because, you know, if Miss Nene Leakes gets mad, she gonna hang up the phone. So,
bye, click.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but I agree with you. I think that talk shows and the lives that people are doing and things like that, I think it works for that. I don't really think it's going to work, like you said, for like other mainstream shows. I don't think it's going to work.
I don't even know if it can work for talk shows, because you miss out on that live audience aspect. Like, watching talk shows now, it's not the same when you can't hear like clap or laughter or agreements or things like that. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's in a. I feel like this is a testing phase. We test.
It is a testing phase.
Testing the waters.
I mean, what might work is if they bring back the talk shows and start putting audience in there. They put up like that little glass thing between the audience and, you know, whatever, where they can still clap and they can still see what's going on. But like,
so it's like hockey,
right? It's not much. It's not much of an open space. I mean, look, I think that people are going to be really scared to jump back into crowds so quick. So I think that that's going to be a problem. Yeah. So I'm worried about that.
Oh, hi, Jamel from Brooklyn.
Hi, and hi, Lydia.
Hi. Will most of the cast return for the next season of the series? Yeah.
They are in my face daily. When are we shooting? When are we shooting? When are we shooting? I'm like, y'all, we are in, first of all, right now we're in quarantine, so ain't nobody shooting nothing. But we have been thinking about doing something a little special for the people that like Pride and people that want to see us with those characters again. There was one big conversation I talked with someone about the other day, and then also we're thinking about doing something just with the cast virtually, where we play those characters and have a little fun. So I'm excited. You know, Pride is going to continue going, and that's why we now have the podcast. It's a different way for people to connect with us.
Yeah, I have some questions about some of the cast members. I'm gonna slide in the DMs on that.
Slide in the DMs.
But so Pride, the podcast, You started that as kind of branching out
Yeah.
from the series. What topics are you looking to cover on the podcast, and what do you hope people gain from listening to you all discuss these particular topics?
Yeah. Um, so a couple of things. Right now we are getting people to know us a lot better. One of the big feedbacks that we got was they felt like for us to be the core four of the show, myself, Braden, Adam, and Ashley, they were like, we want to know more about you guys and how, like what the question you asked, how our lives influences our characters and the decisions that they make. So we're now at that point doing that. We are talking a little bit about controversial things. We do talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about what's currently going on in the world with COVID-19. We are talking about the LGBT community and how they've been affected by this administration.
Yes.
We talked about the things that we've overcame as LGBT people as well as people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even like how Braden sees that being a white male, a white gay male, like how it affects him and how, you know, up until this administration, we didn't really, and I hate using this phrase, people didn't really see color that way. Like we were just like, oh, we all just kind of coexist until you start realizing, wait a minute, you're white, I'm black, or this and that, and we're a little bit different. So we
Yeah.
do talk about those things on the podcast because I think it's very important sometimes to hold a mirror up to our own faces to kind of see like, what can we do to make things better? Because we clearly can't leave it up to the government. We can't leave it up to other people to change how we feel about something. So it's
Yes.
all about us as people taking those steps to become a better society.
Yeah. Well, have you seen the article about it's from them
Yeah.
online about how gays fat shame and judge each other?
Our most recent episode was about that. And we're definitely going to talk more about it. It's tough because when I was growing up, I was, I guess, what they call a twink. I don't even know what that means, but I was that at the time. And I didn't, now, you know, I have a little bit of meat on my bones, a little belly, whatever. So back then, I would go to even quote unquote twink bars where everyone was in there with their shirts off. I've never been a person to just walk around with my shirt off. It doesn't matter what kind of body I had. Even when I was working out in high school and had a decent body, like I'm not the type. I just don't do that. But I remember my first time being in a bar where that was kind of what was going on. And, you know, I was like, oh, let me like raise my shirt up a little bit. And I remember getting shamed and being like, well, you don't have a six pack. You don't have a V. I mean, your stomach's flat. But, and I was just like, So I started going to, I guess, bear bars. I really hate the terminology. You can tell, like, it makes me choke to give the terminology. But I started going to bear type bars. And, you know, I felt more of an acceptance there. But now I've even started to see there's such a big group of infighting within the gay community that we're also tackling in Pride in this next season, that it's just became frustrating. I mean, I really, really hate when people fight, you know, within a community. We're all going through the same thing. We're all kind of oppressed. So yeah, I don't really do the label things, but I'll say, like, I really hate the whole fat shaming thing. I hate people shaming someone because they look different.
I've always felt like we are the harshest and most judgmental towards each other. And that a lot of our insecurities are imposed on others. And it starts making us feel less than. And I don't think people really realize that it's not always rainbows and unicorns, you know, in this world. It's very hard, and it's a lot of hardships. And it's a lot of things that I feel like we as a community need to change so that we can be better, because we can't just hold each other's hands and look to society and go, accept us, appreciate us, let us be ourselves, and then look at each other and go, but I don't really like you because you're too thin, you're not masked enough, you're too fat, you don't have enough abs, you're this, you're that. We can't ask society to accept us when we don't accept ourselves.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, there was a friend I had back in the day that would always say, well, I'm like more straight because I'm more straight acting gay. And I'm like, but still like men, don't you? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, we're both gay. Like, it doesn't matter if you're more masculine, if you're more feminine, if you're more whatever. I think that what matters is if you have a good heart, if you're a good person, if you care about people, because honestly, you can be masculine all you want, but if you're an asshole, you're still an asshole at the end of the day. Like,
I have always said, you might be a pretty asshole now, but in 10 years, you'll just be an asshole.
And that's it. And I mean, that's why I always try to lead with kindness. You never know who you're going to connect with and who you're going to like spend time with in the world. I mean, the world is a very interesting place. And I think that sometimes people are in situations, like you said, with Rachel Melvin, for example, you had done some stuff in the past by doing interviews and soap events. And then you show up on set and she's like, what you doing here? And probably her thought was, who you interviewing? And you're like, no, honey, we're working together today. We're colleagues. And that's what the most important thing. I mean, that was that was the hardest transition. I'll say that, Tony. I didn't mention earlier, like from being a fan of soaps, going to soap fan events, and then showing up on set. I did get a lot of side eye. They were like, what you doing here? Like, how did they let fans on set today? And then I pull out my script and I said, no, we have a scene. We're about to shoot. And so that to me is very like, people start to look at you differently and you can see it click. When they're like, oh, shit. And it's like, yep, my hard work is showing up to those soap fan events paid off, didn't
it? Exactly. That's how I feel, too, because I never thought in a million years that I would end up hosting fan events, let alone hosting an after show on AfterBuzz about Days of Our Lives.
I love, by the way, I am coming to the next AfterBuzz. Next time y'all do AfterBuzz, I'm coming. Like, I love that show so much because y'all go on there and when y'all are talking about soaps, I think the knowledge that y'all have, especially of Days, is so on point. And there's nothing I respect more than someone who knows a soap.
Well, listen, you have to know a soap because fans will let you know you're wrong and we're not tuning in. And people don't realize, again, that soap fans are the most loyal people and that they like to connect with you because this is a niche type of show that not everybody's talking about. Like, this isn't like Game of Thrones or Love is Blind, where, like, you know, you can talk about it. Like, I can't go to Target and be like, what did you think about Steven, though? They'll be like, who? I'm like, oh, never mind. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's that small community of people who you got to know yourself. You got to remember how Patch lost his eye and why it's so significant today. That happened decades ago, but guess what? It's still relevant today. And
it's clearly still relevant today. I mean, that's why I love Ron Carlivati. I know that he gets crap, I know. But the one thing that he did at GH, the one thing he did great over One Life, and one thing he does at Days is he does research history. Like, he has those little moments where you're like, I see you. Like, I remember that. And for hardcore soap fans, that's so important to see those moments and say, like, wow. And Ron also has an affinity. I mean, if it wasn't for Ron, Finola Hughes would not be celebrating 35 years today on General Hospital. He brought her back. You know, like he brought Jeannie Francis back. Like, he brought those people back to the show. And, you know, he's done it at Days. I mean, I love the way Belle and Sean pop in. They just pop in and they're like, hey, what's up? You know, we here. You know, Stacey Haddock I never thought anybody but Eileen Davidson could do Kristen. I also never thought anybody but Eileen Davidson could do Susan. And I'll be damned if Stacey Haddock has not came on Days and made that her own.
She had. And you know what? When I first met Stacey, when she came to Dish and Days, I told her, I said, listen, I was one of those people that when you came on, I was like, nope, I don't know who this person is. She is not Eileen Davidson. They're bringing about Kristen. Nope, I'm not going to take it. And the second they showed her as Susan, and she had the look and the voice, and you had to do one of these, like, is that Eileen? Oh, I was like, but what I also appreciate about Stacey is that, and she told us, she did her homework. She watched how Eileen Davidson portrayed Kristen and Susan and took the foundation of the character and then made it her own. So that's what I always appreciate about Stacey. So
I mean, I remember her first scene when, you know, she was Susan well, she was Kristen pretending to be Susan, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that whole wedding, and she had to perform in front of, basically this was her audition piece. She is in front of all of our iconic Days of Our Lives characters, Marlena, John, Steve, Kay, all of them, and this is
Everybody.
her moment. She's like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm gonna give y'all. And when she showed up in that red dress, and that red dress was the same red dress we last saw Eileen Davidson in, my first question was, that's the only dress you got, Kristen? And then my second question was, fucking brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
y'all brought this woman back and didn't do, back in the day, soaps used to do the role of so-and-so is now being played by, they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going
We're
to
not
put
gonna
her
do
in
that.
a dress that's similar, and
Yeah.
we're going to bring her in, and then y'all just going to know this is Kristen DeMira. And I
Yeah.
was just like, it worked so well.
Yeah. Agreed. What do you think of LGBTQIA representation now in media? Because there's been a little growth. Like
Yeah.
even when you started Pride the series up until now, there's been a little bit more growth and diversity. What are your thoughts on that on representation now?
I think it's getting better. I think
Hmm.
that we still have some ways to go about how they're represented. For example, on GH, you have the gays. You have Lucas and Brad and everything. They had a huge storyline with them, and we're not really being able to see their reactions to the storylines.
Yeah.
They're kind of just now, they were kind of like pieces that were there. I do think that we have a long way to go. I see Young and the Restless doing great things with Mariah and Tessa over there. So, I mean, it is getting better, but we do have to understand that soap fans, if not most of them, the older ones anyways, there's certain things that they like to see on their show. We're losing the gays on Days of Our Lives
Yeah.
coming up. But Ron has a way, I do believe they'll be back. I believe they'll
I
be
mean,
back.
yeah.
Ron is good at benching characters and saying, like, you need a rest. He did it with Abigail and Chad when they left,
Yeah.
like last year. He did it with Nicole, and then she came back. He did it with Chloe, and now she's back. So I think that he's going to do the same thing with Will and Sonny. They need a break. And I
Yeah.
think that they'll
Yeah.
be back.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, they've been on the canvas for quite some time, and sometimes it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to say, all right, let me bench them for a second, and then bring them back in. Because what do you like? What storylines and what things are you going to keep doing
Yeah.
with them to keep them fresh and stuff? Because for a while they were just pop-in characters. They would pop in and kind of be a part of everyone's storyline, and then pop back out. So yeah, I think there's a moment where you just kind of have to let them rest a little bit. What do you hope with the work that you're doing and the podcast that you're putting out and the series and stuff? How do you hope to kind of be that voice for LGBTQIA media and shows and things like that? What mark would you like to leave
Wow.
with your
I don't
project?
think I've ever been asked that question. I think that the mark I would personally like to leave is the fact that people can be inspired, that the fact that I created a show at 25 years old, I believe I was at the time.
Mhm.
And I was able to be brave enough to come from a small town in Texas to finally, any role that I've ever played, I've never played gay in any role except for Pride. Because I will
Yeah,
go in for gay characters and they'll be like, oh, you're not gay enough. And I'm like, no, I'm not the gay that you want me to be. I
it's a
am
stereotype game.
I am authentically myself. Obviously, I can give you the whole like stereotype if you want, but we as gay people are on a spectrum. There are different types, body types, personalities, and we shouldn't be confined to a small box. So I would hope that people can watch Pride, see that reflected, and then also see that, if they have a story that they want to tell that they don't feel is being represented or put out there in the best way, that they have the courage to create that and do that themselves.
Oh, good. See, look at you.
I did, yeah. I mean, I just want people to have more. I think that sometimes we wait for, like I was saying earlier, we're waiting on someone to kind of give us something or
Yeah,
create something or do something, and a lot of times you shouldn't. You should say, oh, let me go out and do this myself. It's like the old saying. It's like, God grants us the wisdom, and at the end of the day, it's like you have the courage to do it yourself. You can create things, and yes, don't let things like money stop you. Don't let things like people saying your stuff and your work isn't good enough, because if it's coming from your heart, it's already good enough.
true. Oh, look at that. Well, I wish you nothing but luck
Thank you.
everything. Like once Miss Rona does what she needs to do, and like we get back to going up. You know, I wish you much success on Pride the series, on the podcast, and I just hope that you just continue to grow your little empire over there, and that people really like support it and take a look at it and recognize like what you're trying to do. So
thank you, and I can't wait for it's over because I would love to officially have you come over and play with us on Pride. It would be an honor to have you be a part of the show.
listen, you let me know, and I got you on candid camera saying that. So
I always keep my promises on that. I always love to have people who are friends and people who are very talented individuals to come play in the world of Pride. So come play with us. You're always invited.
I would love to, and I have a list of people that I would like to play with in that world.
Well, then you got to slide in my DMs and tell me because I think I know who one of them is, and I'll say that person has asked about you as well. So we'll figure that out.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I gotta go get into these DMs and find out the tea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dorell. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening, King.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yes, we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone. Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I absolutely love Dorell. Such a talented guy, and he's doing so much. Like you said, sometimes you can't wait for Hollywood. You got to go and get it yourself. So make sure you guys keep up with him. He's at I am Dorell Anthony on Instagram. Also, you can follow Pride the series, where you can find out more about his series and also the podcast. Support him. Appreciate him. Like, you know, look forward to all that he's going to do for the LGBTQIA community. And don't forget, watch Pride, the series season 1 and 2, available on Amazon Prime right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Tell Me More with me, Tony Moore. And I'll be back with another guest right after this. So stay tuned. Thanks, you guys. Bye.